Good day. My name is David Gamble, and I'm a retired English teacher of some years in the high school system, and I wish to present to you a lecture on Twelfth Night, which will cover plot summary with some commentary. There are two parts. The first part, this one, will focus on plot. The second part focuses on broader themes and nuances of the play with historical commentary. So this is part one. Let's begin. The discussion of Twelfth Night will be presented in two lectures. The first will be a plot summary with appropriate annotations of ideas and themes, but the action will be the focus. The second follow-up lecture will be a more analytical commentary and discussion of the themes and the background of the play. There is overlap. I would assume in the second lecture that you folks would have read it, seen it, or studied it, so that I will not summarize plot in that second one. Digging into the bard's script leads further and further into the invention of the human, as Harold Bloom's book instructs us. And therein lies the pleasure, the discovery of our humanity through this author. The bard's insights, nuances, and revelations are probably equal to the finest in the English language. If I'm to be abandoned on a desert island, please give me a copy of his complete works. Here we go. In Act 1, Scene 1, one of Twelfth Night, as Shakespeare presents it, it would seem a sitcom of love. Orsino, the ruling Duke of Illyria, fittingly opens the play as the highest noble in the land, that is, convention is much observed. He immediately professes his lovesick condition as a sufferance, soon to be perceived as self-inflicted, even vain. Furthermore, in the play, the romantic soul doesn't come unattended by its shadow side. On that, Shakespeare builds a story that reveals the pining duke's condition as a pose wherein the lover is actor and audience of himself. A long-suffering vanity, he's stuck in his own mud, however poetic such an entrapment may be. Poetically, the Duke's state is a gentle caricature, an admonition to us all. To begin, Orsino bemoans his state. The opening, it's not a soliloquy, speech actually is much quoted, and I will quote it here. If music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, that surfeiting the appetite may sicken and so die. That strain again, it had a dying fall. Oh, it came o'er my ear like the sweet sound that breathes upon a bank of violets, stealing and giving odor. Enough, no more. O spirit of love, how quick and fresh art thou, that, notwithstanding thy capacity receiveth as the sea, naught enters there, of what validity and pitch soe'er, but falls into abatement and low price, even in a minute. So full of shapes is fancy that it alone is high fantastical. Gravely, that's by Act 1, Scene 1, line 1 to 15. Gravely, the morose Duke associates his love with death, as the music has a dying fall. Sadly, his affections are unrequited. Committed to his self-indulgent love-sickness, he compares himself mythically to Actaeon, who, having been caught gazing upon the naked goddess Diana, bathing, is torn apart by his hands, his desires having been materialized by the offended goddess. The hyperbole is satiric, a caricature of the lovelorn. Is this love of Olivia, or is it self-love? The Lady Olivia will not have him, for the lady is in mourning for her dead brother and refuses to entertain any proposals of marriage. Orsino is insistent, thereby introducing this conflict of the drama as frame for the whole story. Stubborn, Olivia's household has been dark and dour, for the lady's mourning has allowed no joy. Valentine bears witness to it. But like a cloistress, she will veiled walk, and water once a day her chamber round with eye-offending brine. All this to season a brother's dead love. Act 1, Scene 1, line 30 to 33. However, the heavy pall in the household is an annoying impediment to the carousing of her wastrel uncle and his company. Her uncle, Sir Toby Belch, complains, "What a plague means my niece to take the death of her brother thus? I am sure care's an enemy to life." Act 1, Scene 3, 1 to 3. This scene introduces a tripart division. Unrestricted ribaldry in the basement, self-imposed mourning upstairs, and narcissistic lovesickness on the other side of town. However, the Puritan steward for Olivia, now remember Puritan steward, Malvolio, will add a sobering mix of burlesque and cruelty, as he will be the victim of an unrelenting revenge for Sir Toby's fun as part of the below-stairs subplot. However, as the narrative is established, the conditions that prevail are in stasis. Nothing's moving. For now, each component part is locked into itself. Act 1, Scene 2 introduces the second narrative thread in the aftermath of shipwreck, the first thread having been Orsino's love dilemma. Meanwhile, off the coast of the setting of Illyria, a storm has caused a terrible shipwreck, whereby a young noblewoman named Viola and her identical twin brother, Sebastian, are swept onto the Illyrian shore. Finding herself alone in a strange land, she assumes in grief that her twin brother, Sebastian, has drowned in the wreck. However, the captain gives some hope. "I saw your brother, most provident in peril, bind himself, courage and hope both teaching him the practice, to a strong mast that lived upon the sea." Act 1, Scene 2, 12 to 15. Note that the captain gives us a picture of life, strength, and action, but not stasis, as we will find later. Viola's arrival will challenge the status quo on land as she becomes embroiled in the standoff in the main plot. Furthermore, Sebastian's vigorous action will reverse the morose vanity of the principal characters, for he will be the antidote needed in the plot's unraveling. Thematically, change, alteration, renewal will come from that liminal space, the ocean, invading the stagnancy that exists on land. Remember, change came from untamed spaces in A Midsummer Night's Dream and As You Like It. It's an oft-repeated theme in Shakespeare's plays, even in Macbeth with the heath. In spite of her grief, Viola must figure out what sort of work she could do to live. Stranded alone in the Tudor period, a woman would have few choices: sex work on the streets, low manual labor, the nunnery, or some other servile position. Unsurprisingly, coincidence plays a role. After having identified Orsino and Olivia, the captain informs her of Orsino's courtship of the withdrawn Olivia. For security, Viola should seek employment in Olivia's household. However, she must apply to Orsino's, for the Lady Olivia, in extended mourning for the death of her brother, refuses to talk to any strangers. Resourcefully, she will disguise herself as a eunuch named Cesario and go to work in the household of Duke Orsino. She says, "I'll serve this duke. Thou," that's the captain, "shall present me as a eunuch to him." That's Act 1, Scene 2, 58 to 9, thereby setting the deception as a major plot complication. The disguise is necessary in these dangerous times for a single woman, thus making appropriate the eunuch disguise. Furthermore, a eunuch without natural testosterone levels would not be strongly masculine as a male. So Cesario, the disguised woman, is a good fit. While demonstrating Viola to be daring and resourceful, the disguise as the soft, educated Paulo Cesario will be a pitfall. Of course, the disguising of women to men is a standard plot device in Shakespeare. So you have the man disguised as a woman, then disguised as a man. If you will notice, Portia in Merchant of Venice and Cymbeline, women were not allowed on stage. Cesario quickly becomes the preferred page of Orsino. For the audience's benefit, Orsino's servant Valentine announces, if the Duke continue these favors toward you, Cesario, you are like to be much advanced. Act 1, Scene 4, 1-2. Orsino quickly confirms, I have unclasped to thee the book even of my secret soul. Act 1, Scene 4, 14-15. There's a bond between the two. Therefore, he sends the trusted Viola Cesario as a courier of love to Olivia in his stead. For he recognizes her manner as so refined that the chances of Olivia's admitting Cesario to deliver his love messages are high. Her refinement and his vulnerable lovesick condition draw them very, very close. In the following, he praises her, or rather Cesario's, his effeminacy, binding their relationship. They shall yet belie thy happy years that say thou art a man. Diana's lip is not more smooth than Rubius. Thy small pipe is as the maiden's organ, shrill and sound, and all is semblable, a woman's part. Act 1, Scene 4, 33-37. Admiring the young man's beauty by comparing the ersatz eunuch to a goddess, the Duke suggests a gendered middle space. The love complication begins when Olivia falls in love with this intersex youth. While Viola is so appreciated personally and physically to Orsino, Olivia falls madly in love with this same ambiguous youth. Intimations of gender ambiguity and sexual fluidity are more than implied. Here, the dramatic irony is obvious to the audience, but the plot is further complicated by Viola's immediate aside. She has fallen in love with Orsino, but must woo another woman for Orsino, her heart's desire, while she is trapped in her disguise of her own doing. Yet a barful strife, whoe'er I woo myself would be his wife. Act 1, Scene 4, 45-46. The plot thickens. Viola finds herself falling in love with Orsino. It's a difficult love to pursue, as Orsino believes her to be a male eunuch, yet so appreciated. Furthermore, when Orsino sends Viola Cesario to deliver his love messages to the disdainful Olivia, Olivia herself falls for the beautiful young Cesario. Olivia, like Orsino, believes her to be a desirable, refined young man. With much negotiation, Cesario presents her suit from Orsino to Olivia without success for her master. In fact, the triangle is further complicated, for Olivia has fallen in love with Cesario, admitting in a short soliloquy, "How now? Even so quickly may one catch the plague. Methinks I felt this youth's perfections with an invisible and subtle stealth to creep in at my eyes. But let it be." Act 1, Scene 5, line 300-304. By the end of Act 1, Scene 5, the love triangle is complete. Viola loves Orsino, who loves Olivia, who loves Viola as Cesario. Wow. In a ploy, Olivia, frantic for Cesario to return, engages Malvolio to lure Viola Cesario into returning with the delivery of a ring she says she gave to Olivia. He says she gave to Olivia. Cesario gave no such ring from Orsino to Olivia. There is no ring. There had been no such ring, so that Viola realizes the trick Olivia is playing to see her once more. It dawns on her that Olivia is in love with her. What a mess it is. She accuses the falseness of disguise for deceit is inherently evil, is it not? It hurts. She summarized in the close of Act 2, Scene 2. I am the man. If it be so as 'tis, poor lady, she were better love a dream. Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness, wherein the pregnant enemy, that's Satan, does much. My master loves her dearly, and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she, mistaken, seems to dote on me. What will become of this? As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am woman, and now, alas a day, what thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? O time, thou must untangle this knot, not I. It is too hard a knot for me to untie. Act 2, Scene 2, 25 to 41. Here, Olivia acknowledges the role of coincidence, chance, fate as playing its card. Fate or coincidence has brought the shipwreck to the domain of Orsino and Olivia, and then the apple cart is upset. Just previously, we have met other members of Olivia's household who reside below stairs as low comic humor. They are a motley crew carousing in Olivia's basement. Lady Olivia's rowdy drunkard of an uncle, Sir Toby, Olivia's witty and pretty waiting gentlewoman, Maria, Festi, the clever clown of the house. Observing this bunch is the head servant Malvolio, the dour, stuffy, prudish steward of Olivia's household, whom they think is a Puritan. Not popular with this crowd. This effect is, and is intended to be, comedy for all. The star character is Sir Toby, Olivia's uncle. His foolish friend, the hapless Sir Andrew Aguecheek, trying in his clumsy way to court Olivia, will provide further shenanigans. The low comedy serves complication and pure burlesque. It is largely farce with a serious twist that comes later. This entertainment casts a shadow over the comedy. In addition, we have the fool Festi, showing his wit with every character he encounters. For such was his job in a privileged household. His verbal hijinks are pure entertainment for the audience, for Shakespeare uses such character often in his plays. Better a witty fool than a foolish wit. Act 1, Scene 5, line 34. In his banter with Maria and Lady Olivia sums up his role. To complete the burlesque, the stuffy servant Malvolio shows his insufferable condescension to all, thereby motivating the low comic subplot in Maria's plotting a revenge against him described below. Act 2, Scene 3 displays the wanton, drunken foolishness of the low comic characters. This troupe is committed to unmitigated joy and pleasure at the extreme end of the hedonist scale. Even Maria, Olivia's personal servant, upbraids Toby and Andrew for their loutish partying, not so much for decorum, but for fear of the mean-spirited Malvolios intervening with their singing and carousing. For Malvolio not only has sway with Sir Toby's niece as the household manager, but also emits severely puritanical, dour, moralistic attitudes. Remember, his is the Puritan group that would have closed the theaters. The steward and the drunks are in binary opposition. As the rational in the group, Maria barks at the men, "What a caterwauling you keep here! If my lady have not called up her steward Malvolio and bid him turn you out of doors, never trust me." Almost immediately, Malvolio threatens exactly that from his snotty position. Of course, they are offended by the self-importance of this uppity servant. He reprimands, "My masters, are you mad, or what are you? Have you no wit, manners, nor honesty, but to gabble like tinkers at this time of night? Do you make an ale-house of my lady's house?" Act 2, Scene 3, 87 to 90. A comic verbal jousting ensues when Sir Toby and others take offense at Malvolio's constant efforts to spoil their fun. Maria engineers a practical joke to make Malvolio think that Olivia is in love with him. The clever one, plots. I will drop in his way some obscure epistles of love, whereby the colour of his beard, the shape of his leg, the manner of his gait, the expression of his eye, forehead, and complexion, he shall find himself most feelingly personated. I can write very like your niece on a forgotten matter. We can hardly make distinction of our hands. Act 2, Scene 3, line 154 to 160. It goes further to make a bigger fool of him. She forges the letter, supposedly from Olivia, addressed to her beloved, whose name is signified by the letters M-O-A-I, telling him that if he wants to earn her favor, he should dress in yellow stockings and cross garters, act haughtily, smile constantly, and refuse to explain himself to anyone. Malvolio finds the letter, assumes that it is addressed to him, and filled with dreams of marrying Olivia and becoming noble himself, happily follows its commands. She did commend my yellow stockings of late. She did praise my leg being cross-gartered, and in this she manifests herself to my love, and with a kind of injunction drives me to these habits of her liking. I thank my stars I am happy. I will be strange, stout, in yellow stockings and cross-gartered, even with the swiftness of putting on. Act 2, Scene 5, 170 to 176. He succumbs to the deception, appearing before Olivia, doing exactly as the devilish false letter demands, kissing his hand grotesquely, smiling and prancing about in yellow stockings and cross-garter, condescending to the lower orders, and fantasizing his new position as the lord of the manor in a branched velvet gown. He convinces Olivia that he is mad. After he has shown that such a diagnosis is credible, Sir Toby and Feste have further plans for him. Their revenge deepens in behavior and class. Note that there was much criticism of effeminate fashions coming in from Europe, so the stockings must be worn by this Puritan, thereby heightening the burlesque. In addition, he imagined himself being Count Malvolio in a branched velvet gown. A man of his status could never be count, and furthermore the sumptuary laws of 1574 would have forbid this rising commoner from wearing such a gown. Malvolio is duped on more than one level. Critics have postulated that this may be the artist's revenge on the strictures and moral condescension of the righteous, richest Puritans who would have closed the theatres, but were rising even so far as to be in Queen Elizabeth's cabinet. They were nervous. Meanwhile, Sebastian, still alive but believing his sister Viola to be dead, arrives in Illyria along with his friend and protector Antonio. Antonio has cared for Sebastian since the shipwreck and is affectionately attached to the young man, so much so that he follows him to Orsino's domain, risking his life, since he and Orsino are old enemies. Antonio, for safety in Orsino's town, makes himself scarce on the streets. Out of love for his friend, he gives Sebastian his purse with all his money to go about the town as a tourist, enjoying the sights. He has a great affection for Sebastian. Some critics have suggested that there is a homosexual theme going along with the gender fluidity of the main plot, as suggested by Orsino's admiration of the boy Cesario and Olivia's attraction to her soft new flame, Cesario. In Act 3, Scene 2, Sir Toby's game with Sir Andrew becomes clear. We have been told that Sir Toby is very aware that Sir Andrew has 3,000 ducats a year as a family legacy. The man is a fool with money, so Sir Toby wants him to stay as long as possible. The lie he has swallowed is that he has a chance to win Olivia's love, making his story the broadest burlesque in the romantic plots, contrasting with the elegant poetry of Orsino and the brashness of Malvolio. Sir Andrew is the burlesque of Malvolio's farce. In order to push the ruse further, Sir Toby, recognizing that Cesario, Sir Andrew's main competition for Olivia, is hardly a warrior, encourages Sir Andrew to challenge Cesario in armed combat. Fabian exaggerates. She, that is Olivia, Fabian says, did show favor to the youth in your sight only to exasperate you, to awaken your dormouse valor, to put fire in your heart and brimstone in your liver. You should then have accosted her, and with some excellent jest, fire new from the mint, you should have banged the youth into dumbness. Act 3, Scene 2, 17-22. The farcical tension begins as the scrawny, mindless Andrew challenges the soft, civilized Viola, disguised as a eunuch, to armed combat. Sir Toby, who sees the prospective duel as riotous entertainment, eggs Sir Andrew on. They face the terrified and confused Cesario. Just as they draw swords and could hurt each other, Antonio appears, by coincidence, a major plot device in the play, and defends the one who he thinks is Sebastian. But it is Viola. No blood will flow, for Orsino's guardsmen appear and arrest Antonio, whom they believe to be an enemy to the Count. In jeopardy, the good Antonio requires his purse back from Viola, who is the identical twin of Sebastian, coincidentally dressed in the same fashion. Viola is confused. Who is this? There is no purse to return. She has no choice but to deny him his request. Bitter when departing, Antonio accuses that Sebastian, for him a god, has betrayed him. His deep affection has been spurned, he thinks. But oh, how vile and idle proves this god! Thou hast, Sebastian, done good features shame. In nature there's no blemish but the mind. None can be called deformed but the unkind. Act 3, Scene 4, 384-387. Suddenly Viola has newfound hope that her brother may be alive. Methinks his words do from such passion fly that he believes himself. So do not I. Prove true, imagination. Oh, prove true that I, dear brother, be now ta'en for you. Act 3, Scene 4, 393 to 97. The author cleverly supports the mistaken identity of the two by Viola's announcing that they are even dressed alike. He names Sebastian, I my brother know, yet living in my glass, even such and so in favor was my brother, and he went still in this fashion, color, ornament, for him I imitate. Oh, if it prove tempests are kind, and salt waves fresh in love. Act 3, Scene 4, 393 to 404. Emboldened by Cesareo's faint-heartedness, the crew has not finished. However, when Sebastian, who looks just like the disguised Viola, appears on the scene, Sir Andrew and Sir Toby, thinking it is the unmanly Cesario, end up coming to blows with Viola's double. Olivia enters amid the confusion and stops the fighting. Sir Andrew and Sir Toby are dismissed. Engaging with Sebastian and thinking that he is Cesario, she now finds the man receptive to her charm, happily choosing to be ruled by her. While he is baffled since he has never seen her before, he sees, however, that she is wealthy and beautiful, and he is therefore more than willing to go along with her. The triangle of love is now a quadrangle. Olivia has found Sebastian, who she thinks is Cesario. Orsino knows not of Sebastian's existence. Now Sebastian is tied to Olivia, and Cesario is yet a loyal servant to Orsino. The confusion deepens. By the end of Act 4, Olivia and Sebastian are husband and wife. How will Orsino react if he thinks Sebastian is Cesario, who has betrayed him deeply by tying the knot with Olivia? Below stairs, Malvolio's supposed madness has allowed the gleeful Maria, Toby, and company to lock Malvolio in a small dark room for his treatment and exorcism. They torment him at will. Demonology was accepted in these times, so the accusation would not be strange. Feste dresses up as Sir Topaz, a priest, and pretends to examine Malvolio, declaring him insane or bewitched in spite of his protests. As the fool says in the voice of an exorcist priest, Out, hyperbolical fiend, how vexest thou this man? Talk'st thou nothing but ladies? Act 4, Scene 2, line 27 to 8. However, Sir Toby, fearing he has gone too far, wants to see an end of this nasty joke. He appeals to the fool. I would we were well rid of this knavery. If he may be conveniently delivered, I would he were, for I am now so far in offence with my niece that I cannot pursue with any safety this sport to the upshot. Act 4, Scene 2, lines 70 to 74. So when Sir Toby begins to think better of the joke, they allow Malvolio to send a letter to Olivia, in which he asks to be released. Malvolio has been notoriously abused, suggesting a level of cruelty can exist in a romantic comedy. Such a serious turn is not out of place in a story that brings narcissistic elements together in the major characters. The below-stairs group plot is their self-serving pleasure, adding a cruel dimension to the themes of vanity in the play. As entertainment, the exorcism would appeal to the Elizabethan audience, for witchcraft was considered a real danger. It was believed. The old medieval world was not gone in spite of the beginnings of natural philosophy, which we call science. Therefore, this pure burlesque would have grounds in the culture of the day. Eventually, Viola, still disguised as Cesario, and Orsino make their way to Olivia's house, where they want to cross Antonio with the guards. The same confusion reigns with Cesario, and Antonio is resentful. He challenges Orsino with the kindness he paid to Cesario, thinking she is Sebastian. Cesario is still mystified. Antonio says, That most ingrateful boy there by your side, from the rude seas and raged and foamy mouth did I redeem. A rack past hope he was. His life I gave him. Olivia enters and interrupts, so the grand revelation or unraveling of confused identities must wait. We are in the dramatist's hands. To exacerbate the conflict, when Olivia meets Orsino and Cesario, she begins treating Cesario with open affection, thinking that she has just married him. Orsino is furious and threatens to end Cesario's life. But this your minion, whom I know you love, and whom, by heaven I swear, I tender dearly, him I will tear out of that cruel eye where he sits crowned in his master's spite. Come, boy, with me. My thoughts are ripe with mischief. I'll sacrifice the lamb that I do love to spite a raven's heart within a dove. Act 5, Scene 1, 127 to 134. Viola, out of real love, this time for Orsino, succumbs. And I, most jocund, apt, and willingly, to do you rest, 1,000 deaths would die. Act 5, Scene 1, 135. Her love is true, absolute, and unreserved, perhaps the ideal for the love theme in the contrast with the self-imposed sufferance of her boss. To complicate, after Olivia announces the word husband, she calls for the priest who married her to Sebastian. The good cleric testifies of the sacraments having been performed. Orsino discards Cesario to Olivia, demanding their paths never cross in his dukedom. It seems to be ended. However, at this dramatic moment, in comes low comic relief, for Sir Toby and Sir Andrew come wailing and somewhat battered from their encounter with Sebastian. Of course, he think he was Cesario. Seeing Cesario, they stop. Sir Andrew cries, "You broke my head for nothing, and that I did was set on to do it by Sir Toby." Act 5, Scene 1, 194. It is a cistern of confusion, ending when Olivia sends them out to dress their wounds. Immediately, Sebastian enters, apologizes to Olivia for the rough and unavoidable treatment of her uncle, and stuns his audience. The siblings are joyfully reunited, and Orsino realizes that he loves Viola, now that he knows that she is a woman, and asks her to marry him. In a series of revelatory speeches, the knots are untied, and the two couples are released to freely love their heart's choices. Even Sir Toby and Maria, we are informed, have eloped. The ragged end of Malvolio's story has not been mended. He sends a letter through Feste accusing Olivia and her household of his unjust and cruel treatment, which Feste reads in comic tones. The comedy is persistent. When Malvolio enters, he rails at them and accuses Olivia of the abuse. The trick is revealed for what it was. But Malvolio, still vehemently spiteful, "I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you." Act 5, Scene 1, 401. The tag is not yet resolved. There might be a reason. Malvolio had been accused of possibly being a Puritan, that severe group who would close theatres. Was Shakespeare taking a jab at them? However, the play ends on a sour note with this cruelty not having been amended. It is noteworthy that typically in most of the Bard's plays, all is forgiven. The ending self hurts and offenses with love and forgiveness, and often marriage. The subplot is the odd one. It bears consideration. So an end. There are, of course, themes of love in various forms. From Viola's pure love to the farcical love of Malvolio, more about narcissism than love. The presentation of Orsino's self-indulgent love of Olivia, while vain but poetic, is transformed into a deeper love of Viola, with whom he was thoroughly engaged as Cesario, the gender ambiguity being evident. Then there is Antonio's love of Sebastian, an expression of man-for-man love that is given respect and status in the play. There was no gay identity as a label in those times. Love in this play is love. Perhaps Shakespeare is holding the mirror up. How wonderful human love can be when it is not about oneself. How tawdry and foolish it can be when we are blind to our own motives and our actions, but coddle images of the self. The revenge and cruelty in the subplot speak volumes as a sadness in the human condition or a background social comment. He gives the whole gamut as an opportunity to see ourselves. Thank you very much.